And he's caught, yes. Redpath, Boyce, caught Redpath, bowled Thompson, no score. The West Indies reeling now at 7 for 95.
With the defeat in the winter of 1975-76, Ian Chappell's team taught Lloyd and his youngsters that it required ruthlessness to be successful at the highest level. And with Dennis Lillee, Jeff Thompson and their accomplices, that fast bowling was the key.
You learned a lot from Australia. I mean, West Indies cricket has always produced fast bowlers. And I took a lot of things from them. I said, well, hey, you know, if you just added another guy there who can remove the tail and who can bat a bit, field, you know, excellent fielder. But we just want to conform to what people would say is a good team. You know, 2 quicks, a medium pacer, 2 spinners, and you know. And I thought, well, why don't we change this thing? We want to win. Winning is important to us. And why not use what you have, you know? And our strength did lie in our fast bowling. We had a lot of good fast bowlers. I said, well, why can't we play forward?
In a couple of months, the lessons learned were being turned to advantage. In England, that summer of drought, the young stars of Lloyd's new generation announced themselves with all the impressive fanfare of a champion steel band at Panorama. Spurred on by the assertion of England's South African-born and bred captain Tony Greig that he would make them grovel, Viv Richards blasted a couple of double hundreds on the way to setting a new series run record for the West Indies. Gordon Greenidge, the opening batsman, was in equally commanding form, and Andy Roberts and Michael Holding were as destructive a fast bowling partnership as Hall and Griffith had been before them. Holding guaranteed a 3-0 margin with his 14 wickets on an unresponsive pitch in the final test at the Oval.
And that's out. It's Greenidge catching Alan Knott of Holding.
Well, that was so long ago, 1976. The one thing that I certainly can remember a lot about as far as that test match was concerned was the fact that the pitch was reasonably flat and that I got most of the wickets by pitching the ball up to the bat. Perhaps that is what helped me, the mere fact that the pitch was flat and I knew that if I bowled short I wouldn't be too effective. And I was young, I was strong, I was fit. I just kept on running in, bowling fast, pitching the ball up, and I kept on getting wickets.
After the victory against England in 1976, the West Indies were unstoppable for close on 20 years, even when their ranks were decimated by the intervention of a rejected Australian media magnate. For 2 seasons, between 1977 and 1979, Kerry Packer attracted virtually the entire West Indies Test team, and then some, to his World Series cricket in Australia, established specifically for his television channel that had been denied the rights to official tests. Featuring the game's finest players of the day, it provided tough, competitive, high-quality cricket and sharpened the edge of Lloyd's team for when it returned to the official game on Packer's disbandment.
When Kerry Packer came along, offered all that money to these cricketers, I had never ever seen that amount of money, not even on a piece of paper written down. I figured to myself, well, this is what cricketers are worth. I am going to be continuing cricket for a few more years and I'll go with Kerry Packer.
I think at the time it was very desperate because when you lose your top players like that, from Clive Lloyd and the whole lot of them, you thought, well, what happens now? It was a very highly emotional time for us administrators because we could see, one didn't feel it would be the end of traditional cricket, but one felt we would take a long time to recover.
I thought that we were doing something for cricket and cricketers, because here was a man that was offering us money in commensurate with our ability. That never happened at all in cricket in any part of the world.
To an extent, but understandably, we shot ourselves in the foot because we stopped. I think the word used at the time was banned. The players, we said, look, you can't serve Packer, and if you go with Packer, then you're out of West Indies cricket. That was an error, as it proved to be before Mr. Justice Slade in the High Court in London because it was technically a restraint of trade.
All the facilities are upgraded. You now have, you know, night cricket, you have colored clothing, you have the white ball and black side screens. You have all the things that he you know, started. So it's quite obvious that their game. You look at it, that Kerry Packer's situation started giving our cricket that upward trend, because we began to be more professional, more disciplined, because we were playing against some of the best cricketers in the world. And I'm grateful, ever grateful to Kerry Packer for all he's done for cricket, especially our cricket. We had a trainer, we never had a trainer before. Now we can't do without one.
While at the time we were offended and we were very anti-Packer, with the benefit of hindsight, Packer, the effect of the Packer incursion into traditional cricket had a number of positive effects. One was that it made us, the administrators, realize the value of cricket as a marketable product.
And I think that was the making of the West Indies team. After that, we became real world beaters. And I think it was because of World Series cricket, because of the fact that we were together for a 3-year period, pretty much as a unit. We knew that we couldn't get dropped because we were selected on a contract for a specific length of time. We molded together. We were pretty much banned from playing traditional cricket, so that made us even stick together a bit more. We seek solace in each other, and we built a great team spirit. We were like a family, and we had talented cricketers, and that sort of molded us into a great team.
Once Packer had abandoned cricket, another threat arrived to pilfer the West Indies players.
Ek kan sien dat die Wes-Indiërs baie bekommerd oor daardie slag was, want hulle gou om hom gekom.
Desperate for the international exposure denied them because of their apartheid policies, the South Africans turned to the Caribbean and signed up more than 20 West Indians for 2 seasons. The South African issue understandably stirred powerful feelings throughout the Caribbean. The white cricket authorities offered vast sums that enticed teams from Australia, England and Sri Lanka before they secured their West Indians. But they could not lure the best West Indians, who remained morally steadfast. Viv Richards revealed he had been offered $1 million East Caribbean dollars, but his philosophy was strong and simple. In his autobiography he wrote, "As long as the black majority remained oppressed by the apartheid system, I could never come to terms with playing cricket there. I would be letting down my own people back in Antigua, and it would destroy my self-esteem." Most of Lloyd's great team had similar mind-boggling figures dangled in front of them, but all echoed Michael Holding's response, "Not for any amount of money." It was an attitude that typified the sense of pride that was such a unifying force in Lloyd's great team.
Indeed, except for a contentious 3-match rubber in New Zealand in 1980, the West Indies did not lose a single test series between the end of Packer in 1979 and the Australian Tour of the Caribbean in 1995.
Statistics, usually so bland and boring, are breathtaking. Of the 115 tests, 59 were won and only 15 lost. Twice, both times against England, there were clean sweeps of all 5 tests. In 1984, in the Caribbean, in England and in Australia, they reeled off an unprecedented 11 consecutive victories. 4 of them were by an innings, 2 by 10 wickets, 1 by 9 wickets, 2 by 8 wickets, and 2 more by over 170 runs. There was such a sense of invincibility that nothing ever seemed impossible. When England captain David Gower delayed his declaration until just before lunch on the final day of the 1984 Lord's Test, he left the West Indies the daunting task of scoring 321 to win. With the opening batsman, Gordon Greenidge, leading the charge with a double 100, they knocked the runs off with 11 overs to spare.
Well, that's an extraordinary stroke. It was just as he played it, I had the feeling that he hadn't quite middled it. In fact, he did, and he's hit it for 6 and gone past the 200 mark to become only the 9th cricketer in the history of the game to make a double century at Lord's.
I don't think I've played against a stronger team. It's what I call my misfortune that I got the England captaincy in 1984, appointed against the West Indies here at home, and we had what I'd call a substandard side, a weaker side. They had as good a side as I've ever seen. And it wasn't a fair contest, that's the gist of it. We lost it comfortably by the small margin of 5-0. At the end of it I said, well, don't give up on us, you know, we tried our best, but they were a very, very fine side. And it was always that as a team, as a united team that they were in that period, this period in the mid-80s, they always had the ability, it seemed, to come back at you when you thought you'd done well, and that makes such a big difference. It means that you've got nowhere to go. It means that when you think you've done well, you haven't. It just means that, you know, sheer quality tells in the end. It's one of those things where, as a captain of a side that's coming second, you search for solutions that just aren't there.
This Chinese young fella, by the name of Chiwa, left all the way from China because of Kerry Packer. He said he